our staff. So thank you, and that's all I have.
Thank you, Ms. McDougall. Ms. Duskovich, are you ready, or?
I'm gathering up. I'm gathering up.
I know you are. Do you want me to go on down to Mr. Susan? You need a minute, or?
No, I can do
Okay,
this.
super.
Is somebody else going to cover the ABC Awards? Does anybody have that down?
I won't.
Go for it. I think
All
Dr.
yours.
Mullins is shaking. You have it on your list?
Go ahead.
No, I've got other stuff if somebody else has it on their list. Go ahead. I just don't want to take everybody's time double, triple doing. We want to congratulate the Palm Bay High Marine JROTC rifle team for their competition. They're one of the best in the nation. And if you look at a picture of them, I think there's maybe 11 of them, 10 are females. There's a whole article about them in the Space Coast Daily. They are amazing. And so if you get a chance to thank them and congratulate them and read that article about them, please do. The other thing I wanted to cover, I could do it in board reports, but it'll just take a minute, so I'm going to do it now. I attended my first Florida League of Cities meeting as the new representative. Thank you, Mr. Susan. And it was fantastic. The state president or chairman of the organization, I'm not sure what his title is. Anyways, his initiative this year is Readers to Leaders, which I appreciate greatly, right, as a school district and in education. And he wants students to learn more about municipalities and how they work and government and civics. And so he actually co-authored this book. It's called The City That Talks, and it's really quite adorable. And he challenged all city councilmen, mayors, and other leaders throughout the government to spend a day in the month of April going into one of your local schools and reading this book to the children. So if you are a principal or a teacher and you are interested in having someone do that in your community, if you don't know your local elected officials in your city, you can contact me and I can connect them for you, and let's arrange to get them in to talk to your classes. Also, I can't, nope, I might have one more at the end. I need to look something up real quick. Thank you, Ms. Belford.
You're welcome. Thank you, Ms. Duskovich. Mr. Susan, would you like to go?
So I wanted to say, we had talked before about having some mentors in the O'Galley area with our ALC and stuff like that. So what I did was I had a meeting and started talking to some of them and started pulling people together. And I did want to give a shout out to this individual. His name's Pastor Mike Emanuel from the Emmanuel Methodist Church in O'Galley and United Methodist Church in O'Galley. And what it is he actually just moved here, and he is from Moscow. And he worked in the inner cities of Moscow and the streets of some Ukrainian cities on mentoring youth in a different way. And he is going to head up that whole thing. And I kind of said, I need a community leader to start this initiative down here, along with the Rotaries and everybody else. And he said, I am your guy. I will take this on. So that was an amazing thing, and I wanted to give him a shout out. Awesome. Yeah, the stories he started talking were absolutely amazing. Next thing is I wanted to say I'm proud of this board. Today, for the first time, I felt like we went through in athletics and pushed more into the realm of what athletics means to our district and what we are as a district, and addressing some of the needs than we ever have since I've been here. And that goes a lot of credit to all of you for what you did. And that was just a really, really awesome meeting, that workshop. And then I wanted to give credit to a shout out to Miss Pam Escobar, because Miss Pam, yes, has got a little, yeah, all right, has got a little gardening project that we're working on, where we're gonna grow some vegetables here at ESF. And then we're going to make some salsa and have a mini competition. It's a program out of Food and Nutrition where students learn to garden inside their schools, and then they go garden to table. And we were meeting about it, and I said, how can I help? And Pam says, we should have a salsa competition between the schools, and we should have ESF. So there's just going to be a little garden out there, and we're going to grow some stuff, and then we're going to have it. And it all came because Pam had the idea. So I wanted to give her a shout out that Pam was working on a project, which is awesome. And then I'll give an update on the pre-K stuff later on. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Susan.
Good job, Pam. I think that is the loudest shout out we got.
Thank you, Pam. Yeah.
So far of anything.
We have to really welcome Major Lanza to the team, because you just got right in the spirit. I'm proud of you over
We
there.
like this.
Yeah, Pam earns it. Absolutely. Ms. Campbell, would you like to do recognitions?
Yes, I will keep mine short and sweet. Dr. Mullins and I did some school visits last week, and we went into Jupiter Elementary. It happened to be during Literacy Week, so maybe it was the week before last. And I was just so excited to see so many community partners. A lot of them are partners in education with Jupiter, but so many community partners, even the media specialists from Southwest Middle School, which is in their feeder chain, come and participate in Literacy Week, and they came and read to classes all day long. And so we just we only had time to do one class, but we walked into the room full of all these adults ready to pour into our kids. So it was really exciting to be a part of that day. So thank you to all the partners and volunteers who work there at Jupiter Elementary, and to their PI coordinator for getting it all together. Want to make everyone aware that Brevard Achievement Center is having their very special arts festival at the Brevard Zoo, not next week, but the following week, which is February 24th, 25th, and 26th. And I believe it's 10 to 1 each of those days. That's a Monday through a Wednesday. And a lot of the art that will be showcased will be from our VE classes. So I'm planning on making a trip to the zoo that week and getting to check out the art that will be on display there. And I hope that you guys will take the. We have a fabulous zoo here in Brevard County. We really do. It's tiny, but it's powerful. So check out the zoo and all the updates they've had, but also take a look at the art from our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Campbell. Dr. Mullins first, or you want to go first?
You go, Dr. Mullins.
We have a circle back.
I was just really excited. I kind of forgot about my peeps over here, the Eastern Florida State future teachers of our county. Major, you can give one of those big shout outs anytime too. That's going to be like a regular occurrence. We'll just give you a signal and you can do it. But thank you for taking on this profession. We really, anything we can do. Some of you came to me earlier and said that there's an issue where you're trying to get in to do your 15 hours inside the schools, and they're trying to possibly say that you needed to get fingerprinted for that. I talked to district security, and they had said that in order for you, as long as you are just going in to do your 15 hours and you're not leaving the side of a teacher, there's actually a login where you log in as a volunteer student, and then you work with that teacher. And that district security said that they would work with your teachers and any opportunity that there may be a principal that is confused about that piece, so you can do that. The other piece one of you guys said is, hey, I'm graduating and I would like to know where I can go apply for jobs and all of that other stuff. I do know that Mr. Alba heads up that department, correct, Mr. Mullins?
Yes.
And so if your instructors can meet in the back with Mrs., who should I send them to? Mrs. Thetty, right, Dr. Thetty?
Yeah.
If you can meet with Dr. Thetty, she'll put you in contact with Mr. Alba, and Mr. Alba will be the point of contact for all of you that are looking to get jobs. Because we don't want you to go over to UCF, take that internship, and stay there, because they are not a good county. I can tell you all kinds of stuff about them, all right? Yeah, and you don't want to go to You Can't Finish University either. So you want to stay here, and you want to finish your schooling.
Whoa.
I'm teasing. But the thing is that we want you guys to be here. We appreciate you being here. UCF's a great college. I'm just kidding. But just remember where your home is and come back to us, okay? Thank you very much. They used to be known as that.
Thank you, Mr. Susan. Ms. Duskovich, did I need to circle back to you?
Sure. The two that I needed to add was West Shore. I wanted to thank them. They had a bullying program last week, which was unlike any I've ever seen. I've attended a lot of these over the last couple of years with the funding, with the suicide prevention funding that some of the schools are doing. And it was actually ASA Action Sports that they brought in for free. I think they agreed to do a select few schools in Brevard County this year, and then maybe rotate each year and pick a few more. They were on motorbikes, and literally, I have. Oh, and for the highlight of the whole show, they put Mr. Fleming out on a huge ramp in the middle in a chair, and they were flipping motorbikes over his head and landing. I'm sorry, what?
Langdorf's going to freak out.
Oh, I know. Sorry, Mr. Risk Management back there. It was phenomenal, and through the whole thing, it's just there's so much going on, and there's like anti-bullying messaging and mental health support messaging. Like you don't even realize you're getting it. You're just it's so there's so much going on, and it's impartial and funded by the Marines, interestingly enough, and so they've got some Marines there helping out. It was really a phenomenal program. So a shout out to Mr. Fleming for bringing them in, and to the ASA Action Sports and the Marines for being willing to help our students out and provide programs like that. And Dr. Mullins, were you going to cover science fair? Okay. We had the Intercoastal Science Fair this past weekend. Our students are so amazing. As always, I'm not going to go through the list of who placed, but you can find that on our Facebook page. We listed out and probably a link back to our website, I hope, of the winners. Dr. Sullivan, are you here? I don't even see her. But more importantly, our next science fair, don't miss it, the Melbourne Mall, not this weekend, but the following weekend on the 21st. You can walk around on that Friday and that Saturday morning, the 22nd, and see the projects. And then they'll have the awards ceremony the night of the 22nd. That concludes. Thanks, Ms. Belford.
You are most welcome, Ms. Duskovich. Dr. Mullins.
All right. I want to start with celebrating and recognizing a couple of our bus drivers. Yes. Erica Culvert, and I think the board is aware of this, a couple weeks ago, January 30th, actually, she was on her route, finished up, and she saw a young child like wandering on the sidewalk, 2 or 3 years old. No guardian, no adult around. She stopped her bus, she got off, she intervened with the child, and a couple minutes later she called dispatch and said it wasn't one of her kids, it wasn't one of our school-age kids, it was a child in the neighborhood. And then another boy came up, probably 10 or 11 years old, said he was the brother of the child, but she stayed with them until the police got there to make sure that they were in the appropriate care before she left them. And I can't think of a better example of one of our employees going above and beyond, not just taking care of her own kids on her bus, but aware of what was going on in the community. So Erica Calvert is the driver, and Donna
area?
Seifert was the dispatcher that assisted with that, and just huge appreciation to them. And Roy Salvador, you know, bus drivers have a really difficult, challenging job. Our future educators have probably already heard, don't ever turn your back, right, to the kids. So, but our bus drivers, not only do they have their back to the kids that they're transporting, but they got to pay attention to the road and everything else. But Roy Salvador, in the midst of hectic A1A traffic in Satellite Beach, and if you know Beachside, in that area, there's a lot of construction going on, and there's the beach restoration project going on. And a citizen took the time to call dispatch and let us know how impressed they were with Roy's managing that very difficult, demanding environment, great attitude, and so on. And so, Roy Salvador, thank you for being a great representation for Brevard Public Schools. Very exciting that Brevard Public Schools kids and kindergarten teacher Barbara Wilcox are impacting the entire state of Florida. If you remember, about a year ago, this board adopted the kindness symbol from our kindergarten class at Tropical Elementary School. And next week, on February 19th, the Florida House of Representatives will be announcing the Kindness Week resolution and adopting for the state the kindness symbol that our kindergarten kids created through the leadership of Ms. Wilcox. So, yeah, so our kindergarten kids making statewide impact. That is just amazing, and for all the right reasons. And want to give just a notice to all of us. You know, we've had DIAS challenges throughout the year. Next Wednesday, February 17th, is National Random Act of Kindness Day.
Monday.
Is that Monday? It is Monday. I'm sorry. I'm a couple days ahead. So Monday is National Random Act of Kindness Day. So would challenge all of us to go above and beyond and do an extra random act of kindness on that day in honor and recognition of our kindergarten class and Miss Wilcox at Tropical Elementary. And then last, ABC Awards, applauding Brevard's champions. Our January 29th, I can't remember if that was a week or 2 weeks ago, we celebrated champions across our district, and it was just such a great event. There were student performances. Our culinary programs just knocked it out of the park again, providing food and desserts and everything to all of the attendees. And the recognitions that were made, just a great testament of the workforce across Brevard Public Schools. But I got to give a shout out to our Teacher of the Year, Employee of the Year, Kathy Hamilton Brown, our Teacher of the Year from Endeavor Elementary School. She is a bundle of energy, and she has a contagious enthusiasm everywhere she goes and has made such an impact, not just at Endeavor Elementary School, but the community of Cocoa. And then Miss Maria Morales, our Employee of the Year, who is the front office clerk at Palm Bay Elementary School. I have met her, I don't know, a dozen times in the past, and she's always been delightful, but her acceptance speech was probably one of the most moving speeches I've ever heard. The daughter of immigrants to the United States, and her journey to overcome the language challenges, and just to aspire and serve her community through her role at Palm Bay Elementary was just so impressive. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mullins. And tonight seems to be the circling back night. I am circling back to Ms. Campbell.
Sorry.
all good.
So today was the Children's Hunger Project luncheon, and it was so encouraging to me to sit in a room full of hundreds of people from our community. And how many? 410 who were there to hear about this special program where the Children's Hunger Project is partnering with our schools and bringing in these backpacks full of food for our elementary students who may not have a meal after their free reduced lunch on Friday until they get to breakfast on Monday. And so we're so thankful for them, and it was so exciting to see. I can't wait to hear the total. Pastor Corky from Georgiana Church just laid the... Yeah, he did. He strong-armed us into he did. He threw it down and give all our money. So hopefully that'll have an impact. So because their goal is to have every student who has a need who applies for that assistance to have it. And so already meeting how many? 2,000, over 2,000 students who are getting those backpacks every weekend to help take care of hunger in Brevard. And I have confidence that we as a county can do that.
Thank you, Ms. Campbell. Definitely a worthwhile circle back. I have one. It is from a little over a week ago, but we did not have not seen Miss Campbell since her birthday. So a very happy belated birthday to you, Miss Campbell. Hope you had a wonderful day. A lot of us took part in different Literacy Week events. I got to do the Pinewood Bedtime Story, which is one of my favorites every year. Because we dress up in jammies and hang out in the school for a while, and I get to read books to kids, and we had a lot of fun together. And so many thanks to Pinewood and all the families that participate in that to make it happen. And then I had an opportunity last week to do quite a few recognitions, and for the sake of time, I'm going to not go into a lot of detail on them, but we had talked previously about including our guest teachers or substitutes in our Penn recognition program. And so that has proven to be a little bit of a challenge, only because I never know when they're going to be there. And so I reached out to my principals and got some feedback from them and have been trying to hit them as I'm able. But last week I was able to recognize 6 of our guest teachers, Peyton Smith from Coquina, Vanessa Estrada from Southlake, Cheryl Lewis from Space Coast, Nadia Brown from MIMS, Dee Primer from MIMS, and Chanel Bailey from Titusville High School. And each of them have phenomenal stories. I put a little bit out on my Facebook page, so if you all didn't see it, please take a look, just about their incredible level of commitment in serving our schools. And then the last recognition and a huge thank you to David Hammond, who is our AP of Discipline at Titusville High School. And Mr. Hammond is phenomenal at building relationships with students and families and holding them to high expectations. But there is absolutely no doubt that he is all about supporting the whole child. And, I think oftentimes our assistant principals of discipline get kind of a bad rap because they're the ones that address some of the discipline issues. But he does a great job building relationships and lifting students up. And so I was able to present him with an impact pin last week as well. So many thanks to all of those people that are serving our schools in such an excellent manner, serving our students. And I think especially in the specifically to our guest teachers, I think it's important for us to realize that not only are they serving students, but they're also serving faculty at the school by, giving them some freedom to be out for whatever reason, they may need to be out of the classroom and have faith that their students are taken care of. So we appreciate them immensely. Anyone else I need to circle back to before I, what do you know? Dr. Mullins.
I thought there was a page 2. But I don't want to miss the opportunity to recognize and acknowledge. We have a teacher leadership council that was formed some years ago. They're former teachers of the year that come together and provide leadership and support to teachers across our whole district, all levels of the organization. They work closely with human resources, Mr. Alba, and professional learning development and his staff. And this past Saturday, they held their first annual teacher leadership conference. There were over 160 attendees. They attended breakout sessions that were delivered by teachers, for teachers, that included de-escalation techniques, mindfulness, classroom cultures, digital engagement, a trauma-sensitive class in school, restorative conversations, and there were several more. It was such an impressive engagement of teachers learning from teachers. And so a huge thank you to our Teacher Leadership Council for their continuing commitment to the professional development of teachers for all teachers. And then a great opportunity coming up this Saturday, Saturday, March 28th, Vieira High School. It's a Saturday from 8 to 12:30. It's the 5th annual START Transition Conference, and it's a free conference for families, students, and educators who support someone with a disability. There'll be over 40 community vendors in the cafeteria providing services from early childhood through post-secondary programs and adulthood. It's a great opportunity to begin planning and making contact with support agencies that can assist individuals who have individual needs. START Conference, March 28th, Vieira High School from 8 to 12:30. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mullins. And I have to tell you, I had the opportunity to see a lot of the feedback on the teacher leadership event this past weekend. And I can't tell you the number of teachers that were saying that that was the absolute best conference that they felt like they had ever been to. Super engaging topics and just a lot of valuable takeaways that they can immediately go back to their school and have impact on. So many thanks to all of the teachers that worked to put that together and to lead the breakouts. All right. Anyone else I need to circle back to before I? Okay. Then that will bring us to the adoption of the agenda. Dr. Mullins?
Before I get started with the script, I do have to nullify an earlier comment and just say go Knights. Ms. Belford and members of the board, on tonight's agenda, we have administrative staff recommendations, 17 consent items, 9 action items, and 1 information item. You also have the yellow supplemental agenda, which are changes made to the agenda since being released to the public. Item A7 on administrative staff recommendations received revisions. Item F14 on revision of termination date, and items G29 through G33 on board policies. 2371, 5350, 8390, 8400, and 9160 were additions.
Thank you, Dr. Mullins. What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Moved by Mr. Susan, seconded by Ms. Deskovich. Is there any discussion? Please vote.
It looks different now.
Yeah. We had to go through 2 screens.
How did you get to the?
No, it was letting me vote right from the corner at the bottom where it was showing you, each of you that voted. Pam, they updated it again?
Oh wait, hang on. I
Pam
found
doesn't
it.
have to
Sorry.
tell you now. You see, do you have that?
found
I do.
Just
Yes,
me.
I
I
can
got
see
it.
the vote. Did they fix that for us, Pam?
We can also see who hasn't voted yet.
And the motion passes 5-0.
Can you see that?
I can. It's very exciting. Okay, Dr. Mullins, would you please let us know about the administrative staff recommendations?
Madam Chair, there are 4 persons on this agenda item for the board to consider.
What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Susan, seconded by Ms. Campbell this time. Any discussion? All right, please vote. Look at that.
way better. And I can see how each of you vote too, instead of it being a mystery.
Although now it went away and I can't see.
You have to look real quick before.
I know.
I wonder if you click on view at the top, if it'll show you.
And the motion passes 5-0. Dr. Mullins.
At this time, I would like to welcome and recognize Miss Jennifer Rosado on her appointment to the position of 10-month assistant principal at Cocoa High School. Miss, yeah.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. I look forward to working at Brevard Public Schools, and I want to thank Mr. Wilson for providing me that opportunity and my family for all the love and support in getting me here. Thank you.
Congratulations and welcome to the team.
Thank you so much.
I also want to welcome Dr. Thomas Johnson and wish him all of the best on his upcoming retirement at the end of July. Is Dr. Johnson here? Where is he? There he is. Dr. Johnson, thank you for everything you have done to further our mission to make a lasting and a legacy impact in the lives of our kids. And congratulations on your anticipated retirement.
Thank you, Dr. Mullins and the board. I want to thank God, my family, for these opportunities. I came into the district in 2002, and it's been a whirlwind ever since. Again, I just want to thank everybody for the opportunities I had and to touch kids. And I think that's one of the most important things. Again, thank you.
All right, we are now at public comments. We have 6 speakers scheduled to speak this evening. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. We have a clock in front of me to help you keep track of your time. When your time is over, you will be asked to stop and allow the next speaker his or her turn. Always keep in mind that reasonable decorum is expected at all times, and your statements should be directed to the board chairman. The chairman may interrupt, warn, or terminate a participant's statement when time is up, personally directed, abusive, obscene, or irrelevant. Should an individual not observe proper etiquette, the chairman may request the individual leave the meeting. Let's all encourage an environment appropriate for our children who may be present or watching from home. Let's begin with our first 3 speakers. William Van Doren, Anthony Colucci, and Vanessa Skipper. 6.
Yes, sir.
My name is William Van Dorn. I'm with the veterans group Rolling Thunder. Rolling Thunder is an organization, a veterans organization, and non-veterans who support the finding of POWs and MIAs in this world. If you're not aware, and if the audience isn't aware, there are 82,900 servicemen that are missing in action right now for all the wars, 82,900. How do we serve these individuals? How do we recognize these individuals? In 1970, Mary Huff, husband, became missing in Vietnam. After a year, she did not give up, but she wanted to dedicate knowing that he might not never be found. So she came out with a flag to represent the 82,900 veterans that were missing. In August of 1990, the 101st Congress passed legislation of Public Law 101-355 that the POW MIA flag should be flown in Congress in the United States, White House, and all different federal buildings throughout the United States. In November of this year, President Trump passed the Flag Act, the POW-MIA Flag Act, which says that all federal buildings now should fly the POW-MIA flag. Any federal building that has an agency in it is required to fly this flag. You can see the post offices. You can see across the street at the federal building, you can see the POW-MIA flag. Like I said, we represent the 82,900 that are missing. That chair represents one of those men that have not been able to enjoy sitting here with you and us today. A chair like that sits in the halls of Congress to show everybody that when they come there, that chair shows that the MIAs and POWs will not be forgotten. And that's why I'm here. The Brevard County school system, when I pass here every day, does not fly a POW-MIA flag. It's the only flag that can be flown under the American flag by Congress. And the public schools in Brevard County do not have that flag flying underneath the American flag.
Mr. Van Doren, I thank you for joining us this evening and especially for bringing that to our attention. Unfortunately, we have a 3-minute time limit on the public speaking, so we've got to move on to the next speaker. But I do want to thank you for your service and for definitely bringing that to our attention. If you could connect with Dr. Sullivan in the back of the room, she's got her hand up. Any additional information that you would like to share, she will be more than happy to make sure that the board is made aware, and we'll rectify that, okay?
Okay, I thank you for your time, and all I ask is that you support us flying the flag and the ROTC and all the high schools, which we have gone into the high schools already to teach and bring information, and they are well aware, how we feel. So I thank you for allowing me to come up here.
We appreciate you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Colucci.
My name is Anthony Colucci. I'm the president of the Brevard Federation of Teachers. Based on these meetings, I'm not sure what, if any, accurate financial information is shared with this board. I wanted to point out that according to the FEFP third calculations, Brevard Public Schools is receiving a windfall of $3.8 million. I would certainly like to hear discussion of how that money is going to be spent. Also, I'd like to hear discussion of how this board will spend the nearly $4 million in savings that is occurring this year because of the approximately 60 instructional vacancies that this district has been running since day one. And while I'm asking, I'd like to hear what the board is going to do with the savings from the 137 support personnel vacancies that I counted yesterday. And speaking of which, I'd like to hear some discussion of how the unused sub money is going to be used as our teachers wear themselves out to cover these substitute vacancies on a daily basis. And I'm also wondering why this board continues to hold over $19 million in reserves for something called state-required contingencies, although there is no such requirement by the state. These are tax dollars that should be spent on students, not stored up to manipulate bond ratings. And while we're on the topic, let's talk about that $19 million that's there for emergencies. I reviewed this policy, and there's still no definition of emergency tied to it. So while most of you up there have decided that this means this is money for a hurricane, that's just your opinion. It's not grounded in policy. I'd like to hear some discussion about whether having thousands of students without a certified teacher in front of them is an emergency. Is having 137 support personnel vacancies an emergency? Is it an emergency that our teachers are being denied their planning several times a week to cover for sub-vacancies? How about the projected shortfall in the health insurance fund balance? Does that constitute an emergency? And while we're at it, does this policy even make sense? By the very nature of this policy, if you ever use the money for an emergency, you're out of compliance with your own policy that says you need to keep 3% for emergencies. How does that make sense? As we all know, this board will never publicly discuss these issues. Instead, it will continue to publicly discuss those that shine a positive light on this district. With that said, I'm asking our stakeholders to start pressing this board to answer these questions.
Thank you, Mr. Colucci.
Good evening.
Hold on one second, Ms. Skipper. Before you start, I just want to go ahead and cue our next three speakers really quick, okay? We have Jennifer Jenkins, Anna Chong, and Frank Chong. And Ms. Skipper, the time is yours. Thank you.
All right. Tomorrow marks the middle of the legislative session. While there's been lots of conversation swirling about public education funding, there are still lots of people left behind and no real positive resolution. So people can go to feaweb.org to keep track of the legislative session. People should be calling every single day. Tomorrow, the House Committee on Education meets, and on Thursday, the Subcommittee on Education meets, which means you can't wait till later to call. You need to call now. Right now, the plan that is in place leaves behind veteran teachers, instructional personnel who are not classroom teachers, such as school counselors, social workers, media specialists, instructional coaches, resource teachers, and our pre-K teachers. Also left behind are our educational staff professionals, such as our instructional assistants, bus drivers, custodians, and clerical staff. I've said it a million times. Sometimes maybe I'm preaching to the choir. However, I think sometimes we get complacent in our advocacy. And right now, we've got 30 more days left in the session. I would be remiss if I did not remind the board and the district that we have been tireless in also saying that we cannot rely on Tallahassee to make the right decision. We can call, we can advocate, we can push forward our agendas, but at the end of the day, when that session closes, they may or may not send enough money down to make sure that we take care of our own. You heard the number of openings from my colleague before me. Every classroom that is without a certified teacher is full of students who are not being served with excellence as a standard. We will not continue to being one of the top districts in Florida if we don't take steps forward and leave Tallahassee behind. If Tallahassee is not going to make the right decisions, we need to make the right decisions. So we've been up here, I could probably loop all my public comments together where I've said, we can't count on Tallahassee to do the right thing. We have to do the right thing here. So as Anthony mentioned, as I'm sure has been mentioned times before, teachers in your district, instructional coaches, pre-K teachers, social workers, your bus drivers, your custodians, they're all waiting to hear what your plan will be to improve compensation if Tallahassee falls short again. We must do better for our students so that we can have the bus drivers who are driving through the neighborhood and who care about the neighborhood and who stop to do the right thing, instead of a bus driver who's driven extra routes. And I could go on, but
Thank you,
time's
Ms.
ticking.
Skipper.
Also, go Knights.
Dang it.
Good evening, Dr. Mullins and members of the board. My name is Jennifer Jenkins. I am a speech-language pathologist with Brevard Public Schools, the wife of a history teacher at Cocoa Beach Junior Senior, and the mother of an incredible 3-year-old little girl. During a recent school board public comment, a member of BFT proposed the start of a conversation about paid maternity leave. It caused me to go home and reflect on my personal experience as a BPS employee welcoming motherhood. In a quick summary, my first few days as a new mother were filled with a joy that could never be defined with words. And over the following months, that joy was clouded with anxiety, stress, and sadness. Not by my responsibility of my new role, but by the unpredictable struggle I was facing with my finances. Knowing my sick leave would be exhausted, my husband went back to work just 2 days after I delivered my daughter, just to reserve his PTO. I battled with short-term disability nearly every day for 5 long weeks, as thousands in dollars of medical bills poured in to finally receive a mere percentage of my pay after 5 weeks. When I returned to work, I was expecting relief from my next paycheck, but I was very wrong. A combination of the structure of summer pay periods, my due date at the beginning of the school year, and an accounting error in the benefits department overcharging me by hundreds of dollars resulted in me not receiving a full paycheck for 6 more weeks. We found ourselves a household of 2 educators, a young new family without full income for 12 weeks. It was disheartening as a professional to require financial assistance from my family to support our household. Fortunately, I had that resource available. Many do not. Fortunately, I had elected and qualified for short-term disability before I was pregnant. Many do not. When I look back on my precious first weeks with my daughter, I'm saddened by the time and attention that was diverted from her to navigate my broken process. I'm saddened by the difficult experiences I continue to hear from my colleagues, many far worse than my own. I encourage you all to continue this conversation and guide it towards an example for the rest of the state of how to positively impact morale, recruitment, and retention for our public schools. I encourage you all to reflect upon the idea that welcoming a child has been equated with a disability. To those of you who are concerned about the cost of such a benefit, think about the value of increasing the attractiveness of our county to new industries and businesses with our sustaining strong public schools, thus increasing our tax revenue. As educators and staff, we support and nurture a community of children from the moment that we meet them. Now is the time to support our educators and our school staff as they meet their own. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jenkins. Anna Chong?
My name is Anna Chong, and I'm a freshman at Vieira High School, and I play the flute. I was very grateful to be able to play in Brevard's high school all-county band 2 weeks ago. And even though they were in the same weekend, I was also able to spend a few hours at the Florida Flute Association annual convention in Orlando. And I would like to share some of my experiences there. I was able to attend this class on double tonguing, which is a technique that advanced flute players need to learn in order to play difficult pieces. And this class really helps me do better with double tonguing and also introduced new ways to do it too, and it's helped me ever since. There was also a wide selection of flutes that were there with stores from New York and also Boston, and I got to try flutes of different materials like silver, gold, and platinum, and also different head joints, and I got to hear the difference of the different flutes. There were also a lot of flute professors there who were teaching, performing, and also networking from UF, FSU, USF, and also Stetson University. I also got to see some of my fellow All-State flute players from the All-State Convention about 4 weeks ago, and I got to talk with them about flute and music and all that. I wish that I could have spent the whole weekend there, and I asked my flute section during the all-county band, and none of them knew about this amazing convention. I hope that every flute player in Brevard County will be able to know about this convention and also be able to attend it. Thank you for letting me share, and thank you.
Thank you, Anna, for joining us tonight.
Yes, board, good evening. My name is Frank Chong. I was able to speak with you about 4 weeks ago. And since then, I did receive some feedback from that address and learned that there was going to be an attempt to try to deconflict the two events being Brevard All-County and the Florida Flute Convention. I just wanted to share at least a little bit from my perspective as a parent. Obviously, I'm not the flute player. My daughter is, but just some thoughts from my view. And I'll overarch the theme just by saying I learned a little bit more about what was the realm of the possible. And this convention really surpassed my expectations. And this happened along a few lines. One is that she got to listen to some really, really good players. I mean, I'll take a sports analogy. You know, it's like how do you get to be a better football player? You watch tape. You watch people play games. In this sense, Anna was able to listen to some really, really good flute players. There was a young artist competition. The champions or the winners was able to perform, and you just got to listen to these very, very long, very complicated, very beautiful pieces, and it sought an energy to try to aspire to that level of performance. As a postscript to it, there was actually a performer that competed in it from Eau Gallie High School, and she actually placed. And so I was able to, I'd like to report that to the board as well. Second, what's also possible? Just the techniques that were taught. Anna got to attend one such workshop that was at the convention. There were several, over half a dozen or so, similar types of workshops that were in attendance. And so if we were able to deconflict the events, just think of the numerous possibilities that would be opened up. Third, understand the realm of the possibility of what type of music could be played. There were million dollar plus inventories that were bought by some of these vendors. Larger inventories than can anything be found here in the state of Florida. I mean, these vendors were coming from New York, from Boston, from these other cities, and bringing flutes, from starter flutes from a few $100s all the way to $50,000 flutes. All right, these are opportunities that are not afforded to us here in the state, or at least I have not been able to find a store that has provided such opportunity. Anna didn't mention that we were able to bring one of her friends from Florida, from the Brevard County, to that event, and she was thinking about trying out some other instruments, and she was actually able to not only try that, but try different head joints, different types of materials, and say, oh, this is what I really want. And so just trying to open up that envelope of what exactly is possible. And so that's some of the things I took away as a parent, just understanding what's really out there. I wanted to thank the board once again to revisit the opportunity to perhaps deconflicting the two events. I do have, and I want to submit as evidence, just the dates for the upcoming 2 years.
Mr. Chong, I'm sorry, but
as well as program. So thank you.
Thank you for joining us this evening, and if you would like to leave anything, you can certainly hand it to Major Lanza over there, and we'll make sure that the board gets it.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here tonight. Board members have any? Ms. Duskovich?
Dr. Mullins, I think I mentioned at the last board meeting that he spoke. Can you, I don't know if you've looked into it yet or if you've had staff look into it, just the conflicting dates and see if is it something even in the realm, so we can let him know if it's already hard set for the next 5 years, or if it's something we can work with.
Yeah, I don't have an update at this point, but staff is aware and looking at it.
Okay, and then also on the paid maternity leave, when Kyle spoke about it was it 2 weeks ago, we also mentioned that, at least I did, that at least we were curious if someone could start looking into that just to see what that would look like for us, some general information, just so we can start mulling it around.
Why don't you go ahead? I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, so I actually just asked Mr. Langdorf today in an email, hey, could follow up on that, and he shared with me that he had a conversation with Mr. Colucci and with Mr. Savage about that, and so
They'll be getting us some general numbers to start looking at to see what it would take to move in that direction. Okay, thanks so much. That's all I have.
Any other board member wish to respond to any of our speakers? I will make just a couple of brief comments, and I say this not to be argumentative or disagreeable, but I think that it's really important, especially when we are looking at specifics of situations, that we make sure that all of the information is out there. And so, Mr. Colucci, one of the things that you mentioned when you were speaking was the $3.8 million windfall on the third calculation. And I understand, looking at that information, it looks like something really great, but the truth of the matter is that that windfall that you reference on the third calc for the FEFP is actually going to charter schools. And so that is where the growth was identified. And I think, Dr. Mullins, do you remember the exact numbers on that? I know you and I had discussed that a couple of weeks ago.
I can't. It's all either charter, Hope Scholarship, or other categoricals that we can't utilize. I assure you, it was one of the first things I looked at. It actually is about a $70,000 deficit to our operating budget at the end of the third calc.
Thank you for the clarity on that. And so I mention that only because I think it's important when our public hears this information, they think, wow, you have $3.4 million that you can do other things with. And the reality is that our funding in the state of Florida is an incredibly complicated determination, and oftentimes there are things in there that we're not considering. So once again, I just want to make sure that we're putting accurate information out there. We would be having some budget priority discussions about this time, but we are awaiting our new CFO to come on board so that we can really work through all that. Also, as was mentioned, the legislature is currently in session, and so we'll have a much better idea of what our budget is going to look like when they wrap up, if they wrap up on time on March 13th. So that we can have a better idea of numbers. Also mentioned by Ms. Skipper, and I think it's important to note, we are not seeing a lot of great news coming out of Tallahassee with regard to budget, admittedly. There are some increases in the district's required contribution to the retirement accounts, and that's going to be of significant dollar amount. And we do, while the main focus in Tallahassee has been on teacher salary, both the House and the Senate proposals do have different leeway in there for other instructional staff, other staff within the district in some instances. So we really at this point are obviously having those conversations, advocating for what we think is best for our district, including our veteran teachers and all of our support staff. But until the House and the Senate come together and decide which way that's going, we can't really make a determination as to who's getting what dollars. So I just want to encourage any of you who are watching that there is still hope that we're going to come away with something somewhat more favorable than what's currently been proposed. But I say that with cautionary optimism. So Dr. Mullins, I think you wanted to respond.
I just wanted to also clarify the third calculation, the 3.8 million, but I think it's been addressed. Thank you.
Ms. Deskovich.
Since you were I didn't know if we wanted to address that list of items, but the other one was the 3% in contingency is state required. It's not a policy set by Brevard Public Schools. And the fact that there's $19 million in contingency, we had this discussion at length over the summer that it's recommended that we have 3 months of spending revenue in our contingency at any given time, and I think that number was more. It's been a few months since I've looked at it, but more around 50 million when there's only 19 million sitting in there. So again, I don't want the public to think we're sitting on 19 million because we think it's a fun thing to do. Thank you.
Ms.
One
Campbell?
more thing, and you mentioned, Mr. Colucci, the unused sub money, and I'll be happy to find that memo and share that with you, but I know I had this conversation with our CFO last summer, and we know we had a lot of vacancies last year, but there's a process that the administrators have to go through at the end of the year. If they've used it all up, if they had long-term subs they had to pay, there's an appeals process they have to go through, and then if there is anything left over, then we can do this, this, and this with it, and I know last year there was not any left over. So once all the appeals were made. So I'll be happy to find that memo back in my email files and send it to you so you can see exactly where any quote unquote leftover sub money goes because it was all used up last year.
Thanks, Ms. Campbell. Thank you, Ms. Deskovich and Ms. Campbell for your follow-up as well. And thank you to all of our speakers for joining us this evening. Your willingness to speak to the board is much appreciated. That will move us into the consent agenda, Dr. Mullins.
There are 17 agenda items under this category.
Thank you, Dr. Mullins. Does any board member wish to pull any item from the consent agenda? Okay, then I will entertain a motion to accept the consent items as presented.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Susan, seconded by Ms. Deskovich. Any discussion? All right, please vote. And the motion passes 5-0. We'll move on to the action agenda. Dr. Mullins?
Ms. Belford and members of the board, there are a total of 9 action items on this evening's agenda.
And
I
Dr.
think that's
Mullins.
me, isn't it? The first one is to hold an opportunity for public comment, followed by school board confirmation that Mrs. Belford's travel to Tallahassee, January 20th through the 22nd, was for official school board business complying with the State Board of Education rules.
Is there anyone here who would like to publicly address the out-of-county travel for me for January 20th through January 22nd? All right, what are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Campbell and seconded by Ms. McDougall. Any discussion? Please vote.
Like a little red flashing thing.
Vote now, vote now, vote now.
And the motion passes 5-0. Dr. Mullins?
Next is to hold an opportunity for public comment, followed by school board confirmation that Mrs. Deskovich's travel to Tallahassee, January 20th through the 22nd, was for official school board business complying with the State Board of Education rules.
Is there anyone here who would like to publicly address the out-of-county travel for Ms. Deskovich, January 20th through 22nd? What are,
Do I get 3 minutes?
Yes, you do.
I would just like to know how Ms. Deskovich spent her time in Tallahassee and assure that she wasn't working on her personal campaign for school board during that time. Is that what I get to address? Does she answer?
technically, it's not discussion, but I will allow, are you done with your 3 minutes, or do you have additional to say?
Do I get to save the 3 minutes for another time? Or 2 minutes, 47 seconds? Can I use that next meeting?
If you would like to, no. If you would like to speak on this now, then I'll be happy to start the timer again. I will give Ms. Deskovich the opportunity to respond if she would like to respond.
I would gladly respond so that the public knows that I am using their funds appropriately. Ms. Belford, Mr. Susan, and I traveled separately per our attorney to Tallahassee I think both of us were there for 2 days. The first day, we attended Brevard Day, which was just about all elected officials. It was put on by the Chambers of Commerce and held by Representative Soroy. For half of the day, we spent with them going over priorities for Brevard, and in their collective priorities for Brevard, workforce education was in there. So education played a role with that. They made appointments with us to reach out to legislators, not just from Brevard, but from other places around the state, asking for support for Brevard for workforce education. So I believe that aligns completely with the role of a school board member traveling to Tallahassee. On day 2, our students were actually bussed up, and the 3 of us and Dr. Mullins, I think that was just us this time. Kate?
I was there the day before.
Ms. Campbell was there the first day. They bussed our student government leaders up, and the schools that are in District 3, those student government leaders spent the day with me. We toured the old government capitol, and then they had individual appointments with legislators that I took them around to. Again, not just our delegation, but different legislators in the state, and they actually pitched their legislative agenda on vaping and things of that nature, and then we drove home. So I think the whole trip falls completely in line with what a school board should be doing a school board member should be doing in Tallahassee. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Deskovich. Is there anyone else that would like to address this particular agenda item? All right, then what are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Moved by Ms. Campbell. Seconded by Ms. McDougall. Any discussion? Please vote.
Is it appropriate to vote? It seems like it'd be a conflict. We haven't had to vote on these until tonight. I don't think it's a new. Is it appropriate to vote for yourself?
We voted on them previously, but Mr. Gibbs, if you would like to weigh in on if it is a conflict to vote to approve our own travel?
If you wish to abstain, and I will not say you can't, but I don't think that there's necessarily a conflict there.
I think we should kind of set a precedent here, because if there ever was one that 2 or 3 of us thought they shouldn't go, I think shouldn't we have kind of if we should be voting for ourselves or not. I think we should continue, with whatever we do, I think we should continue to do that, because there may be a time where we're divided on if we want to support someone going somewhere. Is it appropriate to vote?
You can vote. I don't think there's a conflict, but
Okay.
If you do abstain, that does create the possibility in the future of a tie vote with five-member panel. So
Okay,
tie
then I
vote
will-
is a no vote.
I will vote.
And
Doesn't the tie go to the chair for the extra vote? And if the chair is not voting, then
The chair votes here anyways. Usually that's in situations where the chair doesn't vote, so.
I would also address, Ms. Duskovich, that what we're asking the board to vote on is confirmation that the travel was for official school board business, complying with the State Board of Education rules. So unless you are, unless you believe that any of us were not working on school board business when we were there, then I would suggest that it's not like you're approving the dollar amount. You're just saying, yes, it is, in fact, for, does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
so did you abstain or not?
No,
Okay, so
I voted.
okay.
And the motion passed 5-0. Thank you, Ms. Escobar.
Next is to hold an opportunity for public comment, followed by school board confirmation that Mr. Susan's travel to Tallahassee on January 21 and 22 was for official school board business, complying with State Board of Education rules.
Is there anyone here who would like to publicly address the out-of-county travel for Mr. Susan on January 21st through 22nd? All right, what are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Moved by Ms. Duskovich.
I'll second it.
Second by Ms.
I'll
McDougal.
lose this vote. I gotta pay it.
Any discussion? All right, please vote.
That was funny.
And the motion passes 5-0. Dr. Mullins.
Item G29 is on procurement solicitations.
What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Susan, seconded by Ms. Duskovich. Any discussion? All right, please vote. And the motion passes 5-0. Dr. Mullins.
The next 5 action items are on policies 2371, 5350, 8390, 8400, and 9160. The board will hear public comments on each one, followed by the recommendation for approval.
Is there anyone who has come to publicly address the revisions to Board Policy 2371, Hope Scholarships? Is there anyone who has come to publicly address the revisions to Board Policy 2371, Hope Scholarship? What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Susan, seconded by Ms. Campbell. Any discussion? Please vote. And the motion passes 5-0. Is there anyone who has come to publicly address the revisions to Board Policy 5350, Student Suicide? Is there anyone who has come to publicly address the revisions to Board Policy 5350, Student Suicide? What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Susan, seconded by Ms. Campbell. Any discussion? Please vote. And the motion passes 5-0. Is there anyone who has come to publicly address the revisions to Board Policy 8390, Animals on District Property? Is there anyone who has come to publicly address the revisions to Board Policy 8390, Animals on District Property? What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Susan, seconded by Ms. Campbell. Please vote. I'm sorry, any discussion? Please vote. And the motion passes 5-0. Is there anyone who has come to publicly address the revisions to Board Policy 8400, Environmental Health and Safety? Is there anyone who has come to publicly address the revisions to Board Policy 8400, Environmental Health and Safety? What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Moved by Ms. Deskovich, seconded by Ms. McDougall. Any discussion? Please vote. The motion passes 5-0. Is there anyone who has come to publicly address the revisions to Board Policy 9160, Public Attendance at School Events? Is there anyone who has come to publicly address the revisions to Board Policy 9160, Public Attendance at School Events? What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Susan, seconded by Ms. Deskovich. Any discussion? Please vote. The motion passes 5-0. We are now at the information items, which are items that may be brought back later for board consideration. No action will be taken on these items this evening. Dr. Mullins.
There is only one item on this evening's agenda regarding Board Policy 2216, Gifted Education.
Does anyone wish to discuss this particular item?
Me.
Ms.
Just real quick.
Deskovich.
I already said a lot of this today in the workshop, so I'll be super brief, but I didn't want to miss this opportunity to, in a more public forum, thank Miss Jane Klein and Amanda Howell, our gifted resource teacher, for working diligently on a policy, and not just a policy, but a whole program that goes along with this. This has been 3 years in the making. Just want to let you all know that we've come a long way in 3 years. We have identified funds for all of our teachers that are wanting to become gifted certified. We pay for them to become gifted certified. We have moved on testing all 8-year-olds in the entire district to see if they are gifted, so that we can identify all gifted students and they can receive the services they deserve. This is the next big step, creating an actual overarching policy, which is a little general, but that'll put the framework in place for the whole district to have a policy. It is remarkable that we have not had one before in Brevard County. From here, the program will be adopted by Leading and Learning, and we'll be working diligently to get some great things put in place in this district. So I just wanted to thank you all.
Thank you, Ms. Deskovich. Any other board members wish to discuss, comment, share? All right. I will just echo the appreciation for anyone who is not familiar with Amanda Howell. She's done a phenomenal job with gifted students in our district, and we are so blessed to have her working at the district level so she can impact many more students' lives. She has moved things forward significantly, and there is no doubt that she is a staunch advocate for students who are gifted. So we appreciate her very much, and all of the work, Ms. Klein and Dr. Sullivan, and especially Amanda. So thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Susan. Didn't want that breaking. All right. Does any board member have anything further to report?
Yes, just one thing.
Ms. McDougall.
I just want to share with the board that we had our, I think it's quarterly we meet, the Safe and Healthy Schools meeting, and everybody, and Rachel, shout out to Rachel. She is working diligently to get us the gold standard, and this is a packet. It's like oodles of pages and double-sided of the things that we need to jump, what hoops we have to do to get there. And I want to thank her and her team for working real hard, and it was a very productive meeting. We had a lot of our community supporters there also, and I think everybody is excited to see if we can get gold this year.
Thank you, Ms. McDougall. Mr. Susan, I believe you had comment?
Yeah, thank you so much. So when we were up in Tallahassee the last time and we were talking about the pre-K issue, right? There was a series of issues that they had brought to us, and saying that, one, if we expanded certified teachers inside of our program, that it would hurt the private providers, and then there was all of these issues. So I have singly worked out every single one of them. And the last piece was the argument that if we expand our certification of teachers to include best and brightest and everything else, that we are somehow going to negatively impact the revenue source of the private providers by them losing teachers, right? So not only did we show that in every county besides ours, as things grew, even with certified teachers, there was no situation where the certified teachers took over and the private providers went out. But I personally have friends that run a couple of these pre-K programs. So I met with them, and in the 3 places that I met, including one where my kids go to school, they said that actually pre-K in their schools is underfunded, and that they may be not doing it anymore based upon the fact that it has become a negative. So the idea that we are going to expand and take over and hurt their ability because pre-K was somehow funding the rest of their program was completely debunked by all 3 of them. And the revenue that they received from those VPK dollars does not offset any of the loss that they have in the other areas. So I just wanted to kind of report that to you guys as the last piece. I am going up to Tallahassee tomorrow. I'm leaving at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I'm going to meet with staff on what we found. And then I'm also testifying over some bill in the Education Committee that deals with a DOE program that keeps all of our individuals that don't make proper choices that move around. It has a whole database that they hold them at. So I'm going up there to support that. So I just wanted to let you guys know. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Susan. Thank you for your advocacy on those pre-K issues. I appreciate it. Dr. Mullins, do you have anything else?
No, ma'am.
All right. There being no further business, this meeting is now adjourned. Have a great night.
Thank you, Ms.